Okay. So again, I brought Khan Muhammad here, which is a student that is in between his fourth and fifth year at Woodbury University. He has been wearing a couple of hats, and one really strong as NOMAS, the National Organization of Minority Architects Student Chapters Liaison amongst all the SoCal NOMA chapters, if you will, and being involved with us for quite a while. Were you a summer camper too? A NOMA summer camper
No, I volunteered as a mentor. It was my little brother who looks like
who was
exactly
in,
like me.
yeah, was
Yeah.
in the camp, but he's here as somebody you could really ask questions about regarding NOMA from a student vantage point. Certainly about Woodbury University and his experiences there and what that program is about. And because of all of his liaison work with all the student chapters in Southern Cal, he has a pretty unique vantage point where he can share a little bit on the other schools, the others, USC, both Cal Polys, you name it there, Cal Baptist Riverside and all of that. So without further ado, I'm gonna let him take it away, and you guys should not be quiet. And by all means, ask questions that you may have in inquisitive minds. So take it away there, Khan.
Thanks, Ruben. It's a pleasure to be here, y'all. All those titles and stuff don't make it like it's just titles. I'm still just a undergraduate fourth year student. But I have a few slides that I'm going to show you. They're pretty brief because I really want to have this like an open conversation towards the end. Let me share sound and my slides here. So yeah, officially I'm the student board member of SoCal. SoCal NOMA is the best chapter in national NOMA, which has a bunch of chapters across the country. We are the best because of the initiatives that we have all throughout the year and for winning chapter of the year frequently in the past. It's been my honor to serve the NOMAS silo of SoCal NOMA, which I believe is the bread and butter of is such a great place to be. And so with SoCal NOMAS, we have a bunch of events where we come together and basically lean on the fact that we have 10 chapters already across Southern California, and the fact that we have so many in such a small proximity means we could lean on each other, do a bunch of collaboration and cross culture or cross school studio culture, which I've been trying to cultivate in my time as student representative. These are the chapters, or these are the schools that we've had, or that we do have NOMAS chapters at. My home school, Woodbury University up there, we have Cal Poly SLO. Well, let me go from left to right. We have Otis College, we have Woodbury University, we have ELAC, we have Cal Poly SLO and Pomona. We have College of the Canyons, we have CBU, a school out in Riverside. We have USC, we have U, of course, at El Camino, and we have SciArc. That's a lot of chapters. When I first started, we literally had like 5 or 6 chapters. And so it's been an honor to see NOMAS grow and evolve and start to cater to a lot more students. And so last year during the competition, 3 of those schools actually made it to the final round of the student competition that we basically use as our flagship event for our year-round purposes. Cal Poly SLO was able to receive first place in the competition last year. Their project Oakland Flows harkened on the idea of using the BART existing transit system in order to create a typology in the site in Oakland, East Oakland. And that really like grasped the interest of the jurors and the actual residents of Oakland. It was a really beautiful project presentation as well. I really want to send you all a follow-up email to show you these videos too, so that later on when you compete, you could use those as reference as well. For third place, we had Woodbury University, my home chapter, take that home. Our concept was based on the West African drum called the djembe. It not only served as a geometric topology for our architecture, but it also resonated with the program and the atmosphere that we tried to, or that we designed inside our project.
If we have some brief time towards the end,
Mhm.
If you have that video, we'll let you see that one. I've showed them the Oakland flows, but
Yeah.
I'll let you show them your project.
And so, yeah, these were like really great projects. All of the CBU made it to the final round as well, but they received fourth honorable mention, or they received honorable mention in the roundup. And theirs was based on heat. Like it was really great. We had all these puns going around. It was fantastic. But I really want to encourage you. Encourage you all to. You guys are already a part of it, but like the competition is like where it's at in terms of making your NOMA chapter grow and gather like all the interest to students, because every year, ideally, without any pandemics, you get to go to a new and exciting place. This is the video that we have for this year's NOMA conference.
Imhotep, the first architect on record. Without advanced technology, imagine the first Egyptian pyramid complex. Thousands of years later, people traveled to experience this beauty he inspired. Rooted in an ancient imagination and possibility, today NOMA invites you to travel to Detroit and feel the love, our mission to celebrate Black excellence and an extreme love for people around the globe. We are celebrating 50 years of innovation and change. We know where we are from and where we must go. Today's architect is the scientist, the artist, the visionary, the living embodiment of an ancient imagination. The foundation of a building is only as strong as the minds that map its intricate details, the hands that lay the brick, carve its shape, contrast dark and light stone, blow the glass, knowing that the energy left behind will one day touch a community. An opening, a horseshoe arch doorway, transforming a dream into a tangible place of worship, an edgy, warm place to share a meal, a peaceful place to call home. We are the foundation, the necessary plinth, holding up the legacy of those who came before us. We are NOMA, celebrating 50 years of creating space for people of color in the wondrous world of architecture. How do we design healing? How do we transfer Black joy into structures? How do we tell the clear story? History always has a window above a window, an opening yet to be discovered. NOMA plans to be on the front line for the needs of our members. We know diversity is about inclusion and recognizing who we must become in order to lead in our industry. Who else to build the next 50 years than the imagination and ingenuity that shape the homes, hospitals, pathways, churches, masjids, restaurants, and historical landmarks of this nation? We are the architects of the future, advocating for justice and stepping into the legacy passed on to us. It matters who is designing our schools, our recreation centers, our gyms, our courthouses. Care and love for our people is a valuable tool we bring into boardrooms. Every city has a language. This one is founded by self-determination and love. Detroit is honored to be a torchbearer for the great minds who will design and create the powerful infrastructure of tomorrow. We are the beautiful dream of Imhotep realized, architects of necessary social change, architects of justice. How do we design healing? How do we transfer black joy into structure? How do we tell the clear story? History always has a window above a window, an opening yet to be discovered. Welcome home. Welcome to Detroit. We are NOMA, celebrating 50 years strong, disrupting the status quo. The front line of architecture begins here.
Yeah, funny. Some people may have seen it last week. I did show this last week, but I don't
Oh,
remember
no.
what's. No, it's okay. Some people maybe on this call that didn't see it,
Mhm.
but certainly I knew it was short enough.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to kind of share your experience in going to the one in Brooklyn, going to one in person,
Yeah.
and kind of what happens at the conference, point blank.
So it was a journey in and of itself. Like even to just get to Brooklyn, our chapter had to figure out housing expenses and flights and make sure everything fits in terms of the itinerary so that everybody could go and actually experience the conference. My first one was actually in Chicago in 2018. And that's when I was like a sophomore. And what really got me excited was realizing that there are so many architects of color like in one concentrated place. Like just seeing all of us come together was astounding. The fact that I personally haven't really traveled out of California in my like ever. That was the first time I've actually been able to experience a new place, a new city, new architecture. The actual venue for the conference was very bougie. I felt like because I'd walk in, it was like cold, and then they have the coat check, and so they take my coat. I'm like, felt so special and stuff. Just tiny things like that just really made the overall experience great. Although we did not place in the competition when we competed in 2018, the experience to go to the conference and rub shoulders with all these architects and young designers and allied fields of architecture, it's well worth it. That's why the competition and the conference is always like our flagship in terms of promoting NOMA to students at any college, because it gets them a chance to get out of their local bubble and experience NOMA as it actually is. Like it's a network of like all these people who are connected more than just colleagues, but like we're family. And that's one thing I'm trying to like connect all the NOMA chapters out. All we want to do is support and ensure that you get to the place you want to go to. That's why we initiated the project pipeline as like a national effort in order to make sure that every stepping stone is laid out for you, and we have road signs to help you get to there. And so the conference is like beautiful. The food was great. Experiencing a new city, especially if you haven't been to like the conference location, is always in sight, because you could always sightsee after you go to the lectures, which in and of themselves are like amazing. You're gonna find yourself like stressed out, like, oh my God, I wanted to see this one, but they're happening at the same time with this other one. And so you split up and then try to get all the information together with all your friends and stuff. It's a really great experience.
Yeah, you don't have on tap the I know there was a preview of, I guess, what's coming in this conference. Do you have
a preview of
I mean, you know, of the seminars and things that are happening?
There's I know National NOMA, their Instagram, they're starting to promote the speakers as spotlights. And I believe they just released the agenda of all the lectures that they're going to be proposing or scheduled out.
Right.
I haven't gotten a chance to explore them yet, though. But I
Yeah.
know it's
While
going to be
you're
a
talking,
beautiful site.
maybe I'll look and see if I can find that.
Yeah. Any questions regarding the conference? It's a really great endeavor to be a part of.
Any questions, anybody? Of course, like we've said, you know, normally it's exclusively on ground and in person.
Right.
This is a unique year. Why I'm pushing it so heavily is that it may be the last time you'd be able to attend it virtually, because usually you have to contend with just that. Flying to, as it's in Detroit this year, getting there and accommodations. And although that experience is, you know, can't be surpassed, to be able to network in person and meet people, the opportunity to do this virtually for only $75 for students is like not going to happen again. You know, I could say the numbers that have normally been in person in the latter years have really exploded. It's been about 1,000 people, and probably 400 to 500 of them were students from universities all over the country. So it
It's crazy, isn't
really
it?
does give you a chance to see students. So imagine 400 to 500, not just collegiates, 400 to 500 students in architecture only. So where else can you see that? It's a real great opportunity to network. So hopefully next year we can
Definitely.
plan. Do you know where it's going to be next year?
It's going to be Nashville, Tennessee.
You said where?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
I believe that's the hometown or headquarters of like country music, I believe.
Yes.
I'll admit I'm not as excited about it as I was for
Right.
Brooklyn, but they do make these promotional videos really great.
Really.
And I've learned that they choose these sites on like with real intention. And the fact that you're going to be learning this new history about a place that you might not have realized was interesting is always exciting as well.
Right. And I think there is a lot of interesting things about that to give me a reason
Definitely.
to go. I know a couple
Mhm.
of people there, high school friends. So
Right,
it'll make
right.
me, I think I'll have to go to that one
And I think it's going to be big because it's going to be the first probably full in-person
in three
conference.
years. It
And so
will be three.
everybody's going to be like excited, like, oh, I want to go now. I want to go now. And so we're
Yep.
probably going to have like 1,500 people there or something.
And then again, and then as well, it's the South, because what happens, folks, is the Southern California chapter and the Bay Area chapter, that's the San Francisco chapter, as it's called, are probably the most strongly active chapters on the west of the Mississippi, on the West Coast. And there's a major fall off until you get to the South and the East. So whenever a conference is either in the East or the South, there's just a heavy number of folks that attend that because it's easy for them. They drive half the time as opposed to flying, and you really see a lot of people coming from all over there coming. So for us, you see a lot of people you don't normally see. It's just like us. Imagine if it were, say, in Arizona, not extremely close, but not extremely far. So when it happens in the South and the East, all of those guys could drive to those places, or quick flights, and you see even more of them coming. So worth it. So if there's no
Yeah,
questions on that, I'll certainly let Khan get into his Woodbury experience. And
definitely. But before we move on to that, like the first conference I went to, I'll admit, like I was intimidated by like all these architects with like they're all principals and like they're big people and you're a student walking through and like, hey, how am I going to like approach these people? It's taken me like 3 conferences to like be comfortable with that and realize that NOMA is more welcoming than other organizations out like if you've like been in memberships for like other programs, they might be more bureaucratic or very strict in terms of like professionality and stuff. And NOMA also always pushes for like excellence in design and professionality. But in the end of the day, we're both struggling with the same thing. And so we could relate to one like, oh, yeah, you're my brother or you're my sister. We're a family, right? And so remember that when you're walking up through like the conference or even virtually, like even here with like SoCal NOMA, we are a family here. Make yourself known, let us remember your name, and you'll be good. And so like, again, this is like just all the chapters we've had here. Of course, my the most I'm gonna know about is Woodbury University. Since El Camino is a node on most of your journeys in terms of transferring out to other schools and universities, I wanna highlight some of my experience on the educational side at Woodbury University, because it's been a pretty fun experience. When I first started Woodbury, I actually just started NOMA as well. And so it's kind of funny that like NOMA and Woodbury are like the synonymous thing in my life where I've evolved in both of them at the same time. This is the track of like what Woodbury students would have in terms of classes year to year. Freshman year, typically we want to, I'm going to talk specifically like in studio classes. Typically we like to start off with model making practice, which I think a lot of other architecture schools do the same. I believe my year in 2017 was actually given the studio prize for the design intent that Woodbury's first year, or design rigor that Woodbury's first year architecture program had. We designed these boxes and understood positive and negative voids, positive and negative spaces, rectilinear and curving geometry and all of that jazz. It was really fun, really hands-on. You start to learn how to fabricate by hand and also digitally as well, using our digital fabrication lab, 3D printing, laser cutting, CNC, metalworking, wood shop, all of that stuff in your freshman year. And then second year, we typically start to focus on more technical parts of architecture in terms of programming, precedent research. We delve into Grasshopper in our second year. That was a fun year, but that's only because I like came from like a computer science background. And so it's a challenging year, but it's also quite rewarding because at the end of the day, like we're designing these buildings that like if you just move a slider and the whole building is going to start like morphing around and like changing proportions and all that stuff. And so that's exciting as well. Third year, the biggest thing you want to note is steel competition. Woodbury has always participated in this and dedicated their 3B spring semester to steel competition, where we compete. This is primarily more focused on structural and architectural components and how they intermingle. And yeah, it was a really fun year. It's basically like partners. And so that was the first partnered studio that we had, teams of 2, and it was like quite interesting. Before I go into 4th and 5th, do any of y'all have questions about those first 3 years?
I have kind of a general one.
Yeah, what's up?
So I initially was confused between when you could transfer in as a first year and when it was ideal to transfer in as a third year, because there's like I think between different universities there's so much variation in all the concepts and how they're all discussed.
Definitely,
Would you say
yeah.
you had any difficulties transitioning from like El Camino classes to Woodbury classes, or anything you would recommend as a heads up for transferring, I guess?
Well, I wasn't a transfer student. I came from first year, but I can say I understand like the question though. Given your background in terms of like El Camino colleges, I mean El Camino classes, what have you taken, or what position are you in right now? Basically, what classes have you
I
taken?
would say second year. I haven't taken any studio classes really, but I have all the like the foundational ones.
Okay, foundational being like GEs or like drafting
Like
and like basic
hand
design
drawings and
stuff.
stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Presentation, yeah, but not actually making any models.
I'd say when you transfer in, you'd be at a advantage. They might put you in second year, but I can't speak for the school itself. But I feel like what I've seen, transfer students who go to Woodbury, whether they're coming from El Camino or ELAC, they have a higher caliber than those students who transfer in at like freshman or who come in from freshman year, because they've dedicated more school like time in order to develop these skills of like drafting and AutoCAD and all these supportive things that more like private schools and institutions just like casually toss aside because they're more focused on design, right? And so those students who go in straight to in freshman year, those things that you've dedicated time for are brushed aside for them, really, or it's rushed. I don't think brushed aside is a good way to say it, but like it's more rushed. It's expected of them, like, oh, you should already know how to use Rhino and blah, blah, blah. Design this beautiful building right now. But you being a transfer student, you already have those like build up. And so when you would transfer in, I believe in any year, it'll be advantageous of you to. Now, that being said, I have heard students transferring in third year when I was there. And third year is a typically difficult year just because of structures. It's very like math focused that year because we're taking a structures class, we're taking an environmental systems class, and we have still competition. And so a bunch of those factors might also increase, like this might be a more difficult year to transfer into. But it's all good for you because it's literally preparing you for fourth year, which is a monster in and of itself. Does that help answer your question?
Absolutely, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in on that to say that I think that was well said from what I could see, not being ever a transfer student, going right from high school into USC and seeing what programs are, and obviously knowing what El Camino's program is about. I could see what he's saying, because what you will get with an associate's degree from El Camino is now you will have had 2, maybe 3 studio classes. So although it's very difficult to be at that third year level, coming in at second year, you're certainly not a first year student. You're well in advance because you've had architecture. Imagine a first year student just came out of high school. If they've had a drafting class, that might be all they've ever had. You've gone far beyond that. And half of what you've done is not even addressed as a formal course at a university. So you're a strong second year student is what you are. Although everybody aspires to come in at third year, it's just very difficult to do, just from the standpoint of not being in that program before, which, kind of coming in virtually at the middle of anybody's program is like you don't know their stuff yet. So that's going to be difficult for anybody, let alone somebody that hasn't been at the university level. So I kind of advocate that, because what I see is once you come in at second year level, you could be sure by the time you get to fifth year, there's going to be a number of things that you probably don't need to take that a conventional first through fifth year has to take, because you've already done them. You've eliminated your GEDs. You've probably taken some architectural elective classes, and you're basically biding your time getting through your studios and a couple of other supportive classes, as opposed to the really heavy load that a 1 through 5 student would probably have to take. Would be my.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. If you're adamant and you really want to just apply for Woodbury at third year, I'd say show show them that you've have experienced model making, like physically and like digitally. All those all those like digital fabrication methods that I listed earlier, shown that you're well versed in like Rhino and Revit, Rhino and Revit, and that you're also like taking structural or have taken structural or systems based classes, so that it shows that you've realized like that's what your third year is, and I've catered my course load at this other college to make sure that I could get into your third year, basically.
Because those things that you just spoke of are really focused in second year at Woodbury. So learning how to use Rhino, model making, and all of that is developed in second year.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And so just mirroring kind of their course load is a good strategy, I would suggest.
And that shows you where you got difficulty. I don't even know community colleges that have Rhino. Now, I had to check with like ELAC if they have it. We don't have it. Most programs don't even have it, where you say, okay, you get that. As we do have Revit and AutoCAD, they will come out with strengths in those things. But that and the model making, because we don't have 3D modeling stuff.
Well, fortunately, El Camino has a NOMAS chapter in SoCal NOMA, which is the best chapter in National NOMA, and has connections to us, basically. I could foresee, and this might be like a note, like who's ever taking the position of USEF in terms of the national or the president of El Camino, ECC NOMAS. That would be something that I would suggest you leverage for or ask for, to give your NOMAS chapter a bit of a head up, like, hey, SoCal NOMA, we're looking for licenses in Rhino. Would you be able to help us with that? And I'm playing both sides right now because I'd probably be the one to like approve it. So, and so that would be something that I believe is a strong thing that you could lean on NOMA for, so that you can be more prepared to transfer out when you feel comfortable. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Fourth year was a really fun and monstrous year because in the fall, it was our comprehensive studio. And so everything was in there: structures, systems, materiality, assembly, detail drawings, more detailed drawings, and then detailed drawings. And so that was really fun. That was, and when I took it, it was a partnership. This year, they're now solo, which I believe is more intense, just because of the amount of work that they're asking you to do. You're literally designing a small project that's at caliber to like internship level, like detailing, working stuff. And so that's a fun year. That's followed up in the spring with an urban focused studio, where in the fall you're focused on the small details. Now in the spring you're focused on the macro, larger context of projects at a larger scale. I believe my project was a 28-acre project that time, and so it was a pretty large endeavor. And then 5th year, this is where my expertise kind of starts to dwindle down a bit because I haven't been a 5th year yet. But I can say that the first fall semester is thesis prep, preparing for what you're going to be focusing on for the spring. We typically have like a thesis, like a grand critique, where we select the best theses in 5th year, and it's like a scholarship. I think it's 10 grand to the student who receives it. One is for best GPA, another is student selected, and then another is, or the final one is faculty selected. And so those would be your proposals for your thesis. And in 5th year, that's when you would work on that thesis completely. A little bit of side notes or whatnot. I'd suggest like you tailor your thesis to something you might see yourself doing out in the future. I do see time. It's 12:40, so I'm going to start picking up the pace a little bit. And then the biggest thing that actually drove me to Woodbury was the Ipal program. Like that whole coursework that we went through is great. And it's been helpful in my just development and maturity as an architecture student. But the Ipal program really like set me to choose or helped me decide Woodbury as an option. Ipal program is the integrated path to architectural licensure. In this program, which you apply for in your 2nd or 3rd year at Woodbury, allows you to get the pass to study and take your licensing exams before your graduation. And so the ideal Ipal student, which unfortunately I am not, would have taken all their exams and passed all their exams prior to their graduation from undergrad. And so at the end, once they receive their diploma and say like, I'm officially an undergraduate architecture student and blah, 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 they could also apply for their licensing so that they could actually legally call themselves an architect. And so this Ipal program helps guides the students with getting the internships for specific time frames and accumulating the ARE or AXP, sorry, the AXP hours that's required for each of these tests. They add a gap year between your 4th and 5th year, which I've been calling gap year, flex year, Ipal year, all these other things. Like I don't know the name, a good name for it. And so I've settled on 4.5 year, where you're interning full time. And it's also contractually, like you're also studying for your exams as well. And so I'm studying for my project or practice management exam, which is suggested to be the first, or it was recommended that I take this first because it's more just book-based studying and memorization, as opposed to the later exams, which are more on-site type questions that I haven't experienced yet. And so the Ipal program is really alluring in terms of fast tracking your career and making sure that you get licensed early on, as opposed to losing track of it once you start practicing.
And is that so through this year of internship, you're going to be taking the different exams piece by piece? So
yes,
the thought is
I'm taking my exams piece by piece, but realistically, life happens. Things don't go as planned. These tests are extremely difficult, and life happens, right? I'm on track to at least get my exams, at least 3 exams in this gap year. I'm going to push for 4, but realistically, I might be able to get 3. That leaves me with 3 more after I graduate, which still is a leg up once you start applying for internships and not internships, you're applying for full-time positions after graduation, or even grad school, saying like, yeah, I've taken half my exams already. I'm already en route to licensure, which a lot of firms are looking for because they want more people that they could say like, that's an architect, she's an architect, he is an architect, right? And so I think it's a great program, and be flexible with yourself. Like you can try, like I attempted to like stay on track and get all 5 exams done before my 5th year, but life happens and you need to make adjustments as you know, and keep rolling with the punches. Any
So
questions?
I'm sorry. So you like take these exams like throughout the 5 years that you're there?
No, you could if you've already accumulated like a bunch of AXP hours in the past. Since you all are like already in college and like studying at El Camino, you could probably start accumulating those AXP hours. Once you transfer into Woodbury in 2nd or 3rd year, you could apply for the Ipal program and say like, hey, I have half my hours already done. I could study and take practice management right now if I get into the Ipal program, which means I'm ahead already in the Ipal program and don't have to cram everything in that final 4.5 year. And that makes you a more attractive candidate for the program. And they'll most likely admit you because you've seen that you've shown initiative, or they've seen that you have shown initiative in making sure that this program works for you.
And the Ipal program, that's something one can apply to. I guess that's a whole conversation onto itself. But it appears that it's a program that helps you in preparation for the exams, right?
Yes. The
Aside
benefit
from the courses that you're taking at school.
it'd be on top of the courses you're taking. And so it's just another layer of responsibility that you're going to have to ask yourself, do I want to do this? And that's something you can only answer. But if you're willing to take the time to devote some studying hours for these exams, then by all means take the opportunity.
Okay, got it.
It's certainly something we'll talk about, but it is really to a large extent. Well, I see the Ipal, you get into that from early on, year 2, or is it year 1?
No, so you would have to apply by 2nd year, and then you would be admitted once you're a 3rd year.
I see.
When you're a 3rd year, you could apply and then you'll be admitted when you're a 4th year. And then typically once you've applied and you're in the Ipal pot, your resume and portfolio are circulated to firms that have agreed that like, this is an Ipal student, we're going to help them. We're going to help them follow this Ipal track and what have you. But it is highly competitive, as you can imagine, even amongst Ipal students, and getting those internships in the pot that they automatically send out. And so I also recommend you get your internships yourself. Every time when there was an Ipal internship available, I had already secured another internship that I got on my own. So that's just leveraging your networks.
Can you send me the information on the Ipal, like this slide? I can look at it in a.
Yes. I could briefly talk about this. I don't want to linger on this, but I'm working at ZGF right now, and there's this project in Sacramento called the Richards Boulevard's office complex. I'm working on like presentation drawings on this and some hospitals that are in CA, and so all those hours help in terms of compiling and making sure I'm getting all this exposure.
And CA, folks, is construction administration. So the project is under construction
Yes,
So he's working on it while it's under construction as opposed to while it's being designed, and
exactly.
which is a great uh aspect of a project to work on, because you really start to learn how things come together.
Exactly, exactly. It's great because I've never experienced that in my previous internships. And so this is pretty new for me because I'm like, oh, wow, things are like moving really fast. And it's like, oh, they asked another question. Let's see what that's about. And then it's great. Um, but
And
fortunately, yeah, go ahead.
and I will say that ZGF folks, so look up that firm. It's a very impressive firm that you could look into, that does a wide range of architectural projects.
So I will say I have a hard stop at 1 or 105,
Yes, yes.
but I will briefly talk about this. Woodbury, if you have a thing against Woodbury, you could always apply for USC and go into their Ipal program. At this moment, only Woodbury and USC are the only West Coast schools that offer Ipal. I don't remember any other colleges on the other coasts that have Ipal. And then just another plug for NOMA. These are all of the chapters that we have, other pods of NOMAs that are just like you, who are wanting to mature and go into architecture with strength and like excellence. And so when you are applying for schools, look at these schools because you'll be jumping from one family that loves you to another, the same family basically, and you'll see this space more often. And so like it's great. I know CBU has a really good like master's program that's 5 years. So after you graduate in 5 years, you get a master's in architecture. USC is always a good school to go to. SCIARC is brand spanking new. If you're interested in the high design fields, I know they're interested in breaking records there as well. Cal Poly SLO, they were the last first place winners of the last competition, and so they're getting a lot of support and emphasis at their NOMAS chapters. And of course, SLO is a really amazing school nationwide. And then similarly with Pomona being one of our top chapters out there. You know what I feel about Woodbury. In the end, I believe Woodbury is a great place. It's a beautiful place, and I'm glad I chose it. I wouldn't have chosen any other school. Otis College as well is one of our newest chapters that you might want to transfer into. All these schools are great, fantastic people who are interested in trying to support you. And then look into their programs as well for like specifics. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, Eric, you want to ask anything there about?
Yeah, actually for Woodbury, I got two questions. What's
What's
the
up?
general emphasis? You know, I know some schools focus on environmentalism or urban city plan. What's the general emphasis for Woodbury?
Yeah, so with Woodbury, we like change up our themes like every year. Last year was climate justice. And so that focused on the concepts of sustainability and green architecture, as well as social justice and promoting justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion throughout the built environment. And so those went hand in hand, and a lot of the studios started to alter their curriculums in order to match that focus. This year, it's a design intelligence. Recently, Woodbury has acquired a computer science, applied computer science major within the School of Architecture. And so we're leaning a lot on that in terms of incorporating AI and virtual reality, computer programming into our designs, like parametric design, Grasshopper, and all that fun stuff. And so we're really like leaning on that in terms of creating design that's like evolutionary and more based on technology. As a whole, Woodbury is very student focused. Since it's a small campus, a lot of the professors don't swing too far on either spectrum, in terms of your design has to be a theory, no foundations, it needs to be floating upside down on rolls of popcorn or something like ridiculous. There aren't professors like that. And there aren't professors who are like, I just want the building to stand. I don't care about the concept. I just want a box. It's really focused on you and how you want to practice that in architecture. And that being said, we do like as a holistic, like what students tend to typically do. Students fall in the lines of like form follows function, in that sense, right? But not too far as in that as an extreme.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually applying for grad school. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the grad program at Woodbury. I mean, I actually come from a math background, so I know there's certain MArch programs that are open to that, but
Yeah.
certain programs are not. So I'm not sure what's Woodbury stance on that.
I'm not too privy to like the application process of it, but I do know if you do choose Woodbury and go here, I think you could leverage your stance as a math background to really like grow in this like computer science and architecture like paradigm that we now have like at Woodbury, because we have professors here that literally like program things to draw drawings for them, and he's really into that. He's the chair of Mark Erickson is the person who's leading that, and he's very focused on like the technical mathematical sides of things, but I think it's a place you could thrive in if you leverage your strengths. There will be just a learning curve just because you're coming from math and architecture. I'm assuming you already knew that, but like.
But no, that's great. That's good to know. Yeah, especially with programming. I've done a little bit of programming with involvement with math and statistics, so maybe leverage that. Yeah, and that's good to know. Awesome.
Yeah. Anyone
Folks,
else?
I did want to say I put in the chat, you ought to grab that out of there. They do have the list of seminars for the NOMA conference listed, and that link I gave you takes you right to it. You really ought to take a look at that, and that gives you a really good idea of the multitude of different seminars that are available by attending the conference there. So grab that site out of there. And Eric, I gave you information on that particular person because he's a SC graduate program graduate and could give you some insight on all of that.
Cool.
So
Thanks.
yeah, certainly folks, you know, I think we'll have Khan come back again, if not before this semester is over, in next semester, and show us some of the things that you're working on there at ZGF, which is pretty cool and dynamic to show. And hey, he is not a stranger. That's why I just asked him last week to do this. Yep. And he said, sure, I'll do it. So these are the type of connections that we want to share, the cross-pollination, as I like to say, between the different schools and experiences, that all we have to do is ask if, you know, you're part of the family of the goings on there.
All you have to do is ask. I think if you ask SoCA NOMA for like some licenses for ECC NOMAs, y'all would definitely get it.
Yep. So we're trying to bolster, get our chapter up. Most people on this call are not actually NOMAS members yet, but we're getting them to come now. They're learning about it now. That's why I can't emphasize enough not going to the conference next week. It's like having an invitation to, you know, the Oscars, and you want to get into film. And it's like, nah, I won't go. What? You know, it's like it's crazy that this happens once a year, folks. Now it is Thursday through Saturday of next week. So, and it is Eastern time. So you have to look at when things are. And yeah, there may be things that you just can't miss a class and you don't go at that time, but there'll be plenty of stuff that you do get into. And a lot is on Friday, which most of you don't have classes, and a culmination on Saturday. So look at that list and all of that good stuff. And in parting here, because it is 1 o'clock, if you have other questions for Khan, you can give them to me, and we could certainly shoot them to Khan and he can get back with you. But
Definitely.
thanks again, Khan, and hope this was a beginning helpful to all. But these are the type of things to get deep dive into the different programs, what they do and what to expect. This is how you know. What he's doing right now is, what do I need to know as a practitioner? Well, I'm forcing myself into this internship program to learn it and actually get involved ahead of graduating from school. So we're all continuing to grow and learn. So that's why you want to cross-pollinate and talk with people in other experiences to learn from them and gather that.
It's been a pleasure meeting you all.
So there you go. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk to you again, Khan.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Professor Raymond,
Okay. And
can I keep you on the call for a few seconds?
yeah, I'll stop the recording, I guess, huh?
Oh, hi,
Alright.
Monica. This is about homework.